Tear out on a mitre saw is a big issue, and it's caused by the factory insert plate having a large gap down the middle. They're designed like this for bevel cuts, but if you're anything like me, you probably don't do bevels that often. The fix is to give your workpiece support right up to the blade. You can make a zero clearance fence like this one that can be taken on and off, but the more practical option is a zero clearance insert. Today I'll show you two ways to make one: a quick beginner version that's not pretty but it works, and a pro version from hardwood that functions and looks great. And this one is going to be staying on my mitre saw. If you're a woodworker, you've probably got the materials lying around for this in your offcuts pile. For the beginner version, I'm using some 9mm plywood. It's cheap rubbish ply, it's full of voids, but it's going to do the job. First, I traced around the factory plate to get my outline. I cut it out on the bandsaw, but a jigsaw would have worked just as well. I will say this though, I thought I had a thinner blade from my bandsaw, which would have made this cut much easier. I then sanded the edges by hand so that it fit the recess. For the screw holes, I drilled them out using a countersink bit. Where the tabs sit on my saw is higher than the centre of the insert, so I used a rasp to knock these down by around 2mm. I could have just made the whole insert 7mm rather than 9, but since I had the 9mm plywood, it made sense to do it this way. I could then drop the plate into the recess on the saw, screw it in place, and then to finish it off, you just have to lower the blade and make the cut. And that's it, not at all pretty, but functional, quick to make, and it definitely reduces tear out. For the pro version, I'm using some solid hardwood. I had some leftover chestnut that I used, but it needed some milling to get it ready. You can probably find some hardwood options for making this without having to do the milling if you don't have the tools for this. First up, I marked the rough size to cut the blank from. I then resawed this piece down the middle to make it thinner. I just did this by hand since I had loads of thickness to play with, and I'll be playing in this next. I surface planed one side and then thickness planed it to 9mm. I then stuck the factory plate onto the wood with double-sided tape and roughly cut the excess away on the bandsaw. I could then use a flush trim bit on the router table to trim this to the exact size of the factory plate. For the tabs on this one, I could cut them to depth on the router to make these more precise. I added a chamfer to the edge of this piece and sanded this to soften the overall look of the plate. I then marked up and drilled the screw holes as demonstrated by this lovely shot of the drill press guard in focus rather than the drill bit. This one then gets a coat of my beeswax oil finish to protect it, screwed into place and checked using a straight edge to ensure that it's all flush. Finally I can cut the kerf and this one is all finished. Very happy with how this one turned out, and it looks like a factory edition unlike the plywood version. Here's a quick test cut of that cheap ply to show it in action. As you can see, it leaves an almost flawless cut, unlike the top piece which was cut without zero clearance. This is a really handy addition if you want to make neater cuts on your miter saw. Both of these didn't cost me anything to make, and actually it took a fairly similar amount of time, but having the more pro level tools really does help on this one, especially the router table. And if you're interested in getting yourself a router table, I would highly recommend this one that I use from Lumberjack Tools. It's a great price and it has a built-in motor, so no need to fit your router into an insert to make a router table. You can also save yourself 5% off any orders on the Lumberjack Tools website using my code RENODAN. So that's two ways to make a zero clearance insert, beginner and pro. If you're new to woodworking, this is a simple upgrade that makes a huge difference to the quality of your cuts. Make sure to keep hold of the factory insert plate, because if you ever do bevels, you're going to need this one. Which one of them would you build? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see more workshop improvements that I've recently made, click here. As always, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.